The sun hung low over the red stone cliffs, stretching long shadows across the mesa as Luke Carver guided his horse along the dusty trail toward home. He expected nothing more than a quiet evening, a warm fire, and maybe the company of his old hound. But the desert had other plans. Far ahead, something glinted in the fading light, metal, wood, and the unmistakable silhouette of a wagon tilted awkwardly to one side. Luke slowed his horse, squinting. A broken wheel, a stranded traveler. As he approached, he saw someone standing beside it, watchful and still. It was a woman, Apache, judging by her clothing and the way she held herself, steady as a cliff face. Her black hair was tied back with a strip of leather, and the lines of fatigue around her eyes hinted she had been there for hours under the merciless sun. Luke stopped a respectful distance away, raising one hand to show he meant no trouble. She didn't step back, didn't flinch, just studied him with the calm, unblinking intensity of someone born to a landscape where danger could rise from any direction. After a long breath, Luke dismounted. He introduced himself, keeping his voice low and even. The woman answered with her name, Taya, though the way she said it made him feel she rarely shared it with strangers. She explained that the wagon's axle had snapped clean through, and she had no tools to cut new timber. Her horse was tired, her supplies nearly gone. Luke glanced at the damage, then at the deepening dusk. If he left her there, she'd be alone on the mesa through the night, a dangerous place for anyone, let alone one person with a tired animal. He offered help. She hesitated long enough that he began to wonder whether she'd refuse. But at last she nodded once. Together they set to work. Luke fetched his tools, while Taya gathered stones to brace the wagon. They worked in near silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like a shared understanding. Neither of them needed to say aloud. He chopped a section of fallen juniper, planed it with his knife, and fitted it beneath the wagon with careful strength. The last of the daylight bled out of the sky as he hammered the makeshift brace into place. When the wheel finally sat firm and straight again, Taya exhaled with visible relief. She thanked him in a voice as soft as the desert wind, a sincerity that lingered with him longer than the moment itself. She rode off into the deepening twilight, and Luke mounted up again, unaware that this small act of kindness had already set the wheels of something far greater in motion. Luke woke before sunrise, stirred by a strange heaviness in the air. The desert was usually alive at dawn, crickets fading, birds calling, wind whispering through sage, but that morning everything felt unnaturally still. Even his old hound didn't bark or pace. It simply lay by the door, as if sensing something Luke couldn't yet see. He pushed open the cabin door and stepped onto the porch, mug in hand, scanning the ridges. Nothing moved. Not a single dust trail, not a single coyote cry. It was the kind of silence that pressed on a man's ribs. He tried to brush it off. The desert had moods, same as any creature. He drank his coffee, fed the animals, and went to chopping firewood. The steady rhythm of the axe helped ease his nerves, but each time the blade struck, the echo seemed to travel too far, bouncing strangely across the empty valley. Around mid-morning, he paused to wipe his brow, and that was when he felt it, the ground trembling faintly beneath his boots. A low, distant thrum drifted through the stillness. Hoofbeats, many of them. Luke stepped to the edge of the yard, scanning the ridgeline. At first he saw nothing. Then a single rider appeared on a distant rise, then two, then six. By the time he counted a dozen, they were already fanning out, descending the slope like a tide of moving shadows. The sunlight caught the paint on their faces, bold streaks of red, black and white. Apache paint, not the markings of hunting parties or travelers. These were colors worn when something serious was being answered. His heart kicked hard in his chest. He raised his hands slowly, the axe lying forgotten in the dust behind him. The riders spread in a wide circle, hooves thundering, surrounding the cabin in a tightening ring. Their expressions were stern but controlled, not wild or reckless. This was not an attack, not yet. But it wasn't a friendly visit either. Luke tried to call out, to ask what they wanted, but his voice came out too small against the drumming hooves. Just when the circle stopped growing, one rider broke formation and rode forward. She wore no heavy paint, only a single line across her cheek. It was Taya. She dismounted with quiet purpose, her dark eyes fixed on him, carrying something between warning and urgency. She exchanged words with an older warrior beside her, a man whose presence commanded the entire ring. The others waited in unreadable silence. Luke's pulse hammered against his ribs. This was about last night, he knew it. But whether it meant danger or justice, he would not know until Taya spoke. Taya approached Luke slowly, her steps measured, her expression steady, despite the tension humming in the air. The circle of riders behind her remained silent as stone, their horses shifting restlessly but never breaking formation. Luke forced himself to breathe evenly, though every instinct urged him to glance for an escape route. He had none, not with 30 mounted warriors surrounding his home. He kept his hands visible and waited. When Taya finally stopped a few paces away, she spoke in a calm, clear voice, telling him that her clan had learned of her broken wagon and the stranger who had helped her, who had traveled fast across the desert, faster still when a lone woman returned late at night. Some among her people believed his kindness was real. Others, especially the elders, feared it was the beginning of some trick. Way settlers sometimes earned trust before betrayal. Her clan had argued until dawn. In the end, they had chosen this path, come themselves. See the man, judge his intent with their own eyes. Luke listened without interrupting, trying to read her expression. She did not look angry. She did not look grateful either. She simply looked like someone caught between two worlds, and trying to keep both from colliding. When she finished speaking, Luke let out a slow breath and told her the truth as plainly as dust. He had helped her because she needed help, because a broken wagon at sundown left anyone, Apache or settler, at the mercy of the desert night. He expected nothing for it. He wanted nothing for it. It was just the right thing to do. Taya studied him carefully, her dark gaze searching for any flicker of deceit. At last she nodded once and turned to the older warrior, who stood at the head of the ring. The man was easily in his 50s, his face lined by sun and years of command. He rode forward, dismounted, and approached Luke with a stillness that carried both authority and warning. He circled Luke slowly, observing him, as though weighing not only his words, but his spirit. Finally he spoke in Apache, low and firm. Taya translated. The elder accepted Luke's honesty. The riders had come prepared for judgment, but would leave in peace. Her voice softened as she added that he had earned something rare, respect, and a memory that her people would not forget. Before mounting her horse, she reached into her saddlebag and handed him a small woven charm, the kind carried for protection and gratitude. Then she and the riders turned and rode back across the desert, leaving Luke standing alone, the morning sun warming his shoulders as he realized his simple act of helping a stranger had quietly changed the